So, folks, I'd like to introduce this couple. Maybe everybody knows them. I don't know. I know them as the Monkeys, Michael and Brandy. And if you haven't been out to their bistro on the weekends, it's a real treat. Out on the number 8 towards Merritt. These two are, in my mind, real educators. They're constantly feeding us not only food but information. Something you want to know about wild foods or gardening or all manner of the good life. You know, these guys are living it, and I really honor you for that. You've really got the passion for making your dreams a reality. And, so it's my pleasure to have them come and share with us about wild edible foods of the area.
Well, we're going to put a little selection of things I just ran around the property this morning for about 5 minutes and pulled up the plants to bring them out here. And then, I mean, there's all sorts of wild edibles out there. Some people go, mushroom picking, or there's a lot of people digging wild potatoes and wild onions and that. But right in everybody's garden or in their yard is all sorts of excellent food that you can add to your. You can make teas out of them. You can add them to your salads. Many of them view them as weeds. We like to think of this is perhaps, a way to eat your weeds. So we brought a little selection of things here. We can pass them around, and there's some books here if people want to have a look at the books. I'll start. I'm going to start with this little one here. This is one of my favorite. This is in a little planting block of ours. I only found a little one. A lot of people know these as big, gangly plants. This is called Purslane, and a lot of cultures around the world, in Latin America and in Europe, they prize Purslane as a delicious, nutritious salad green. It's high in omega fatty acids. And even though people see it encroaching on their other plants, it generally just grows from a single little root and then provides a good ground cover. It's protecting the soil, and it helps prevent erosion or the intense sun baking the land. Anyways, that's called Purslane. We like to pick it, put it in salads. In Mexico, they like to put it in soups and salsa. And salsa, yeah. Here, get some pass around, have a look at Purslane, and they'll start thriving when the heat comes on.
Do they come out really red at first?
They're kind of a bit red on the stem, but very succulent little leaves. But more their tendency is to very low and branching.
I've been weeding that one out. Oh,
it's excellent.
It's a delicious one.
There's lots there. Don't Okay. Oh, so glad to know what that is.
Yeah, it's always good when learning about a new food you're going to eat. It's always good to learn the Latin name of it. The Latin name is basically the universal language of something. So if somebody, what's called Purslane here in another country, they might have another name for it. So to know what you're talking about, refer to the Latin name.
Is that indigenous in this area, or was it brought in?
I don't know.
Would there be a native name for it?
I know it also has portulaca.
Yeah,
Portulaca is another name for it.
Is that the Latin name?
I think it might be, yeah.
Did they talk about it in the Thompson ethnobotany book? Did you?
I don't know, yeah, we talked about it. Okay, so next up on our wild deliciousness is these prickly little buddies. I'm sure everybody's stubbed their toe and caught one on their pant leg and thought, you little... And they're amazing and delicious. So you pick them with tongs is best, and you singe off all these little quills, and then you peel them with a little knife, and inside is an amazing little patty of deliciousness. They're great in salsas, they're wonderful with eggs, and right now they're in bloom, and if you haven't smelled one before, get your nose up there, because they're fantastic. So I don't know if you want me to pass this around or not. It is spiny, but I can.
And they make great veggie burgers.
Yes.
Yeah, so you take, with the tongs, you can take over an open flame, and in this area traditionally this was known as February food, because even in February when your caches run totally dry, these guys are still out there. So.
And they're nice in omelets. You can roast them and fry them up with some eggs, or make a veggie burger, or what have you.
So do they show up in your veggie burgers on the weekend?
They have, we have a few times we put them more in eggs. So next on the list is this one here. This everybody I'm sure recognizes. It's very wilty. These are the baking from you. This is wild lettuce. It's a prickly lettuce. Everybody recognizes that. In this stage, it's very bitter. It's pretty much too intense to be eating. But this is where all lettuces came from. This is the grandparent of lettuces, and when they're in their small little stage, they're quite nice to nibble on them. Especially very early in the year, coming out of winter when the first green stuff is coming. Our salads are comprised predominantly of wild greens until the more succulent lettuces come on and whatnot. So this is nice, but when it's very bitter and milky, it's good not to eat too much because it has opiate properties, so it can put you to sleep and make you pretty tired. That's wild lettuce. I will, yeah, absolutely. Wild prickly pears.
So this guy, he's not edible as far as I guess you can eat it, but more medicinal than anything. So this is plantain, and we'll pass it around, and it's an amazing healer. And so what you can do with it is you can pick it, and for one thing, you're out in the garden and you get stung by, say, a bee, you crush it up and put that on the sting, it's gone. It's amazing, really good plant. But also for burns and cuts and scrapes, you can just cut it up and put it in olive oil and strain it out, and there you go. You got a great salve. So
You can also chew it up and just sort of stick it on a wound and just Band-Aid it on there, and it works. And even if it's an infected wound, it'll act as a poultice. Really great.
very good. Yeah.
We've got a great uncultivated variety that we've started growing this year, and it's called salad leaf purslane, or not purslane, plantain. It was in the salad. It was a thin thing, but next we got everybody's favorite is famous dandelion. It doesn't have a flower. I should have gotten with a flower on it before it came out. This is the bane of everybody that runs out there in the heat of the day on their day off to rip them out of their gardens. When instead they can be harvesting them and they can be putting them into their salads or their soups, or the little buds as they show up are very nice to cut the whole crown, and you can saute it. You can serve it a nice French salad. Just take a bunch of dandelion greens and put a poached egg over top with some roasted almonds. It's quite nice. Brandy makes an incredible dandelion wine, where we go laboriously pick, as much the dandelion flowers we can, and Brandy makes a basic tea out of it, strains it out, puts it into a vessel with some sugar, ferments it, and you let it age for at least a year or longer, and it's delicious.
The roots to that can be dried and used to augment your coffee too.
Absolutely, and even in the garden, people think that they're ruining their lawn, when in fact it's quite the opposite. They actually pull up nutrients from down below, as in they bring it up to the surface. As the plant dies, it helps feed your lawn, and the dying root actually is what they call an elevator shaft for earthworms. The earthworms can just fly up to the top, and they can leave their worm castings, and they increase the fertility of the lawn. Or anywhere, so we quite like them.
Another delicious thing to do is when they're in full flower, to pick the buds and dredge them in eggs and then in flour, and you fry them in a shallow pan, and they're the most amazing tempura ever.
What, the roots?
The flower heads.
The flower heads.
Yeah.
We were talking about when the buds are tight. I used to pick them all the time. Just if you got pickle juice in the fridge, put them in and let them sit in the pickle juice. The tight buds, they're great in spaghetti sauce. Just don't poison these guys and don't get rid of them. The nutrition of them is amazing.
I would never poison again.
Oh, they're just too cheerful.
Okay, so next up is the oxeye daisy, which you see on roadsides a lot. Maybe not the best place to pick them, but if you're lucky enough to have them in your garden already, they're a delicious early, all winter long actually. You'll be there picking these wonderful leaves. They're very parsley-like and delicious. The flower petals are great in salads, and once again you can make a great flower wine with the flower heads, so that's a good one too.
Are these supposed to be related to the Shasta daisy?
They look a lot alike. The leaves are a bit different, but I think these are more naturalized here, whereas the Shasta daisy, we just got one last year, and it looks pretty similar, you're right.
Yeah.
And we're going to try an experiment this fall, which we did with dandelion, where it was actually in the fall we were digging up a bunch of dandelions, and we stored them inside with the idea of cleaning them and roasting them for a coffee substitute. But they got left in a bag, and then in mid-December I found them. They were sprouting in the bag. So we had a big pot of soil that we fired them into, and about 2 weeks later we had a whole crop of the tenderest, most succulent dandelion greens, which in the middle of winter we don't buy salads at the store, so it was quite nice, and we think that the oxeye daisy would be another good contender for having in the house. So next we've got
Early greens.
mustard. We got two mustards here. Everybody notices these nice yellow flowers. They're out right now. This is one of our main vegetables in the early spring. When they're small, they're nice and tender, and they get a little more fiery, a little bit more bite as they grow older. I know one person who makes an actual spreadable mustard out of the greens. And the one thing I remember from history class in high school was that during the Second World War, it was either the city of Leningrad or Stalingrad. I don't know what it was called at the time, but this city was blocked off by the Nazis for about 2 years, so that none of the food supplies could get into the city, and people were living on mainly mustard greens, which were growing all over the place. So we like them; they're very tasty. I just found this nice one today, which looks very wilty, but it's got these nice sort of more finer leaves, and it's quite a bit tastier than the fuzzier one here.
So would you just do like a pesto kind of thing with the leaves to do a mustard?
Yeah, I'd imagine that could be quite nice. We just like to put them in salads or in a stir fry or in soup. And we've started making mustard on mustard seed, which is nice. But this would be absolutely
A stronger but delicious spinach substitute.
yeah.
And this is one that we were quite afraid of actually when we first found it in our compost that we brought from the coast. We thought, oh my goodness, what have we brought? And it started spreading.
But it's not
And
there because it's here too.
And it is here. We
Yeah.
actually brought it from here. And and it spreads amazingly from rhizomes underground, puts out new ones. You've probably seen it. There's a lot around the band office. We've noticed it. And it's called hoary cress. And in the early stages, the greens are very delicious. They're quite strong, but quite delicious. And then as the plant grows, it makes these tight little flower heads that are like a great broccoli substitute in April. So I've never had broccoli grow in my garden in April, so I was thankful to identify it and start eating it. At this point, I haven't experimented with it in this open stage, but yeah, the broccoli and the greens are both really good. Excellent for quiche. Hoary cress.
We have this lovely one that's in bloom right now. This one was in bloom, but it's closed. This is called Salsify, or oyster root, and this was brought by early Europeans that came out as a food.
And it does the huge puffball heads, like big dandelions.
Yeah, and when the leaves are small, they make a nice, tasty salad addition. And the root, they actually cultivate this root. Some people grow cultivated one, and it's known as oyster root. Salsify. It exudes a milky liquid. I don't think it really tastes like oysters, but we sauteed some up recently, and it was all right. You know, it was pretty nice. The leaves are nice, and then you put the flowers in your salad. A lot of these we do like say the oxeye daisy. We like to put the flower petals in the salad. They make a nice addition, and we believe that they add other types of micronutrients to your diet. So this is Salsify.
This is quite peppery.
It's
It is very peppery.
Yeah, it gets
Fiery.
stronger as the season goes on.
Right.
Yeah.
But you pick them just before the flowers open?
Yeah, you notice them, they look almost exactly like tiny little broccolis.
Yes.
They're very closed and little green. Yeah.
Is there a big bunch of this growing, like as you're driving to Ashcroft along there's one of those pullovers, and there's just white flowers all over
Could
there.
be. Right, if you were to go between the band office and the street that you live on, they're all against the fence there. There was
Right.
tons of it this spring, I noticed it. So.
Okay.
So here's another amazing herb that isn't for eating, but more for helping out. This is mullein, and it does the amazing tall, candled, yellow flowers. I'm sure everyone's noticed it, very noticeable. The leaves are excellent toilet paper in a pinch, as well as great for coughs, and also for ear problems. So you can do a mullein garlic oil, and it's phenomenal. For our neighbor Nick, he has ear problems all the time, and he swears by the mullein garlic oil, so
And it's also for people who are trying to quit smoking, and it's a smokable plant, so it's the smoking oil station.
Yeah,
It also makes great toilet paper.
exactly.
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Okay. So these two are very similar looking, and I always get them confused. I believe that's line for that's the forage. It's also forage. So this is a nice high in vitamin A salad addition. Sometimes they are actually quite salty. They've got sometimes in the right location they'll have a strong salty flavor, and you can dehydrate and use a salt alternative. Just another nice green. With a lot of greens, it's good as you're picking them for a salad to give them a taste, because in some locations they can accumulate a lot of nitrates, which is undesirable to add that to your diet. So if you're ever picking one of these greens or any food and it tastes like very wrong to your palate, then you should probably leave that place alone. You know, roadsides, train tracks are less than ideal. Best to, and places where people spring is the one I try and hide away from those spots. But that's rich. And lamb's quarter. That lamb's quarter is the other one that's it's pretty much interchangeable with the other in terms of their nutrition and flavors and stuff. So.
I missed what you called what you have in your left hand.
That's Forage.
Forage.
O-R-A-C-H, and lamb's quarter.
Oh,
And they're all over.
Yeah, when it goes to seed, you can use the seeds, actually you can grind it into a meal, and it's excellent flour substitute. So, yeah. And that reminds me, one that we didn't bring because it doesn't grow at our place, but it does grow around here, are cattails. And they are delicious. When in their early stages, you go down into the muck and pull one up, and the bottom end of it is like a leek. It's just so delicious and really succulent. And then those as well, after they've gone into their flower stage, their seed head stage, then you can use that as a flower as well. So if you know where those are growing, they're good ones. So it looks like last but not least is the fabulous alfalfa, which we revere because it makes our goats produce the most amazing, delicious milk. But it's also a super great salad green early in the spring. It's very tender. The flowers are edible and quite sweet and delicious, and also it's quite high in iron. So when I was pregnant with Luna, I drank a lot of alfalfa tea and I had a very good iron count afterwards, so never low in iron. So that's a great one. And also, again, so often we think of it as the scourge on our land, but it's a really amazing plant. So, respect.
Father of foods in Arabic. Alfalfa. And actually, they've actually discovered alfalfa roots as deep as 660 feet long, which means it brings up a lot of nutrition for the soil and for animals. It's a good plant.
And we had last year in our upper orchard, we let it go completely, and we planted squash, interplanted squash in between our fruit trees. And so in the midst of it all was these amazing blooms of alfalfa, and the bees were just in there like dirty shirts, and they were pollinating the squash like never before. And we had a bumper crop. It was 800 pounds, these fabulous squash, and I think it was largely due to this fabulous plant. So.
Which we're also fixing nitrogen for that,
Yeah,
and trees,
that area.
and helping the soil.
Getting healthier. Yeah, so these are a few of the books that we brought along that if anyone is interested in wildcrafting, this is one of my favorites, The Plants of the Southern Interior. It's got really good descriptions, different pictures, little drawings, as well as the flowers as the roots and the greens, and so, yeah, that's one I'd really recommend, The Plants of Southern Interior, British Columbia. So, yeah, good one.
There's a bit of a random selection. There's mushroom books. Really, thrift stores are great places to get books.
Watercress, yeah, that's a great
Watercress is a
one.
good one, yeah.
Yeah. You want to be very careful with watercress because it does accumulate pollution, so you want to make sure the places that you pick it are very clean places and not somewhere downstream with something funky. So, but it's delicious. I really enjoy it a lot. Usually where there's watercress, we go pick it up at the same time.
Of course, the Thompson Ethnobotany is a really excellent book for this area. It even gives you, specific locations of where to harvest certain wild edibles, and the time of year, and so that's quite exciting. For mushrooms as well, there's a lot of good mushrooms to pick in this book.
Great guide.
Yeah.
Pass that around.
Sure.
So recently a friend told us that a name that a native friend of his had told him that was traditional for Spence's Bridge was the handbasket of Coyote's wife. And that is to mean that everything that you could possibly want is here. And it's so true. The more you look around, the more you realize that we've got it all. This is the best place on earth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.